Well, it's the day I've dreaded since entering this crazy game they call YouTube. The man that looks and sounds like a manatee made out of cigarettes, Gary Orsum, has responded to my response video, and as usual, it's too hilarious not to respond to. I therefore cede cosmic victory to Gaz. He has reduced me from man to drost painter!
Oh, what's the matter, Geordies? Did I hurt your feelings? You know what's immediately obvious about you? You're more than happy to give it, but you can't take it.
This is of course coming from a man who made a half-hour video response to a 10-minute video that if you tally up the time he spent complaining about being called names in it, it comes in at 11 minutes, or longer than the entirety of the video that he's responding to. Just in how his feelings were hurt. But Geordies, why would you wish a clown would force my mouth open and shit in it? The "you can give it but you can't take it" comment was preceded by a solid 6-minute ramble expressing his hysterical distress about being called a boomer. An accusation he flatly denies, and in doing so, in usual Gaz style, proves himself wrong on multiple levels simultaneously. If this was you with the worst case of footy mouth you've ever experienced in your life, this is virtually any sentence Gary has ever uttered.
A quick cursory glance at the term boomer, and we see it's someone born between 1937 and 1956.
Oh, interesting. I thought, like everyone else, the boomer generation was born after World War II, not years before it. But nope. Do your research, you little bitches, like matter of fact Gaz, who's proved everyone on Earth wrong by consulting the finest of all sources, Urban Dictionary. He skipped past the Australian Bureau of Statistics, Merriam-Webster, National Census of Australia, all stating that baby boomers were born between 1946 and at some point in the mid-60s. Why? Because Gary was born in the 60s. This is less than 30 seconds into a video where the general accusation hurled throughout is that I choose sources that fit my own narrative, which I guess isn't hypocritical. Is Urban Dictionary a source? Why look at the branches of lies when you can go straight to the root?
And that coming from someone who gets their supposed factual information from the ABC and Guardian articles. Duh.
We'll put aside the fact that he ignored the articles that I provided are from 5 different sources. A clue is given in the latest visualizer of how many of those he read. Big fat zero, cock breath. Me. Blindly trusting the ABC and the Guardian. Well, it's an old meme from an old movie, which, to put it in perspective of how old you actually are, Gaz, is still much younger than you dried up cum rag of yesteryear. But you must be new here. In case you don't speak meme, that means I'm pretty critical of the public broadcasters and the Guardian. But unlike you guys, I'm also critical of the Australian, News.com, the Murdoch tabloids, and controversially, Urban Dictionary. And you know why? Because my understanding of media bias is a little deeper than using the phrase mainstream media, which I'm gathering you think means just ABC Radio National, while the Murdoch press is somehow this underground punk paper circulated by the rebellion. I also, unlike you, seem to have some grasp of the difference between reporting and opinion pieces. Example, if the ABC says this former Parks Ranger said this, that's called reporting. Who, what, when, where. I know everyone knows this, except the subject of this video. When I flash up an opinion piece on screen, he states...
Oh, so you admit that it's been widely reported?
I do like how Gary sees this series as the ultimate game of 4D chess, but me? I just see it as attempting to educate one Dero who lives in his garage. Show me a single source that blames the Labor Party, Gaz.
Why would I have to when you just did it for me, dumbass?
Ooh, topped off with a scared inflection on dumbass. Gary thinks this Miranda Devine opinion piece is A, reporting, B, quality, proving the only thing that is quality is his entertainment value. The specific Miranda Devine article he gives the thumbs up to not only has been thoroughly debunked by Independent Australia, it never mentions the Labor Party once. He may as well have said, why would I need to give you a source when you've used Street Sharks as a reference in one of your videos? Dorsal fin ass. He does go on to provide 2 other sources, but they make you pine for Urban Dictionary.
And a single source blaming Labor and the Greens. Here you go, here's 2.
Damn, now it makes sense why someone who's in their mid-80s doesn't understand what reporting is. He doesn't understand what facts are. His first fact is what Pauline Hanson said to Andrew Bolt. You know, the woman who thinks the Great Barrier Reef is fine because when she owned a fish and chip shop, all her fish orders were completed. And the second is another Miranda Devine opinion piece, which gives us the perfect opportunity to introduce our What Year Is It tally, where we will be counting every time Gary uses a source that is older than any item of share house communal freezer food. The first source off the rank is 7 years old. Gee, must have telepathy to be talking about the current bushfires.
Yeah, why else would it be called the Telegraph? Duh. Duh.
Yeah, well, I didn't say the RFS. I said the Volunteer Firefighters Association, if you were paying attention.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gaz. I assumed you meant the RFS, so I didn't look further into it. Not sorry I misrepresented you, by the way. Sorry I passed up another opportunity to make fun of you. The VFFA is a fringe, teeny splinter group that the RFS has condemned as being, quote, a highly politically charged group, whose president Mick Holden took out $10,000 of their budget and donated it to the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party. So, you know, not quite leader of one nation credible, but definitely in the same ballpark. Writing this damning critique of the Greens and Labour, a repost of the same f***ing debunked Miranda Devine article.
I told you it was widely reported. See? 2 places. Minimum.
God, he gets more use out of that single opinion piece than Marge Simpson gets out of that mangled up Chanel suit. This coming from the man that dismisses anything the ABC and Guardian ever publish because they're part of the mainstream media's agenda, which according to Gaz appears to be, you know, just sipping soy lattes and shit, but is perfectly happy to use the diarrhea of latte sipping journalism, BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed. Which just goes to show Chomsky was dead wrong about the propaganda model. This is how media bias really works. Ready to get red-pilled leftards? Anything Gaz agrees with is not part of the mainstream media. Anything that Gaz doesn't agree with is. Full stop. Surely this lone crusader on climate change must be correct on that very nuanced subject when he can't even understand a gossip article published by BuzzFeed. An article published, time to get that counter out again, you ready? 4 years ago, written by a journalist so hacky he was begging for a job at the ABC in Fairfax for a decade and getting flatly rejected each time, where he exposed, i.e. watched my video, that I did a single sponsored video with the ACTU for the very secret underhand mission of reminding people to register to vote. And that apparently makes me a sellout, as I have never expressed any interest in supporting unions before doing that, if you exclude the years of videos where I expressed interest in supporting unions. Nor did I ever say anything about increasing youth voter turnout. Before that, I was blatantly pro-voter suppression. That's right, BuzzFeed, top journalism as always, has exposed that Friendly Geordies was brainwashing the youth of Australia into participating in democracy. Says man whose entire shit paycheck, and I do take a lot of pleasure in saying that because I know it makes Mark DiStefano very angry when I do. He scratches out a very meagre pittance and relies on major banks and fossil fuel companies to do so. God, his parents must be ashamed of him. They're rich. Not the shilling for major banks and fossil fuel companies part, the fact that he's poor. But Gaz, am I paid by Labour like you suggested? No, not even the article did. How's that reading writing hotline going for you, mate? Am I paid by the unions? No. You know how you can tell? Because no video since or before that has an authorization code on it. And the one video that I did with them nearly half a decade ago, I was very happy to do. I and my team are 100% crowdfunded, just like you are, Gaz. It's just, you know, people think I'm worth a little more than $56 a month. Wow, that's less than $1 for each year of wisdom you've accumulated. I guess that means you're not technically worthless, but my God, you're close. We couldn't find a single third world country whose average earnings are that. And we looked on Urban Dictionary. I think they'd know. The New South Wales Liberals cut $121 million from National Parks and Wildlife Services.
I thought we were talking about the RFS, Geordies, but suddenly you're shifting the goalpost to the National Parks and Wildlife Service. No, mate, I'm not going to let you get away with that. It might fool your viewers, but it's not going to fool mine.
Wow, see the world through the eyes of someone with dementia. Gary, your point was that... Gary! Really pay attention to this. Stop thinking about the fact you were never a rock star. Your point was about hazard reduction burning. You claimed it decreased because of Labour and the Greens. I showed you Office of the Environment and Heritage figures that show that hazard reduction burning has halved since Labour has left office due to the Liberals slashing $121 million from the budget. To which Gary retorts...
But Geordies, correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation.
Here we go. You know when Homer runs into the church yelling, "Sanctuary!" That's how I feel about the phrase correlation doesn't equal causation. It's almost invariably used by mouth breathers on Reddit. You don't want to admit that the facts prove them wrong. Gary Orsum would be a classic example of that if he knew what Reddit was.
I know what Reddit is. Isn't it the comment section of the Daily Mail?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, would be his most accurate point if he actually said it.
You're underhandedly using that stat to imply that the reduction in controlled burns was due to budget cuts by the LNP, but that stat doesn't show that. It just shows that there was a reduction in burns. That could well be because of the environmental protests that have prevented those burns.
Okay. Instead of mocking him, let's try and understand him. Gary Orsum thinks that despite there being 500 less professional national park staff as a result of these budget cuts, the number of fire management officers, the people who plan hazard reduction burnings, their jobs going up in smoke. There were 36 under Labor, now there's 10, despite the fact we have experts on record, people who have been working in the field for decades saying that we can't plan these hazard reduction burns because of the budget cuts. No! According to Gary, that's all correlation. The causation is this statewide conspiracy being covered up by the ABC. He thinks the reason there has been these out-of-control bushfires in New South Wales, and that's really important. The original video was about the bushfires in New South Wales. It was because of a single protest he heard about in Nowa. Nowa is not in New South Wales. Forget what year Gary thinks it is. Do you think he knows where he lives?
Well, I know my postal address is up my own arse.
Oh, don't thank me, Geordies. Thank the leaked emails of the ClimateGate scandal that you seem to know nothing about.
No, not nothing, Gaz. It's just like virtually everything else you bring up. It's from a decade ago, and was debunked by no less than 6 official investigations spanning from Penn State University to UK Parliament, which I know not as rock solid as what Pauline Hanson thinks.
And how the IPCC spliced together different data sets to hide the decline, so that they could create the narrative that nongs like you have completely fallen for, because you don't investigate things properly.
Ah yes, investigative journalist Gaz, right up there with the greats like Mark D. Stefano, their silver bullet to getting to the bottom of what's what, watching YouTube videos from the smash hit channel, The Climate Discussion Nexus, which, ooh, look at that engagement. That's definitely not paid for. Unquestioned expert Dr. John Robson, who has a doctorate in climate science? Nope, history. Close enough. Clearly has very strong links to the Frontier Centre for Public Policy that is funded by the Koch brother and Aurora Foundation. So, awful lot of mining magnate money being splashed around on non-experts who are so uninformed on the subject they think hiding the decline refers to them hiding an apparent decline in global temperatures. It doesn't, as Skeptical Science and the University of Queensland explains, it is a phrase used to describe declining proxies. So at the end of the day, Gary's in-depth research comes from him listening to people who are paid by mining magnates to not know what the hell they're talking about. Meaning he's not even a useful idiot. He's a useful idiot's useful idiot. A useful idiot's squire.
Need a leg up, climate expert / Christian historian? No need to wipe your boots, you can do that on me gloves.
Because you're permanently lost assertion is something that we won't have to wait too long to see collapse around you. In 2 years' time, when all that was burnt has regenerated and it barely shows any signs of ever having burnt, I'll come back to you and remind you of this. I hope you'll have the nuts to then acknowledge the truth of it and say, actually, Gary, you were right. I was talking utter shit.
Yeah, that rebuts the articles I attach. You thinking you're so versed on ecology that you could rebut ecologists without even reading what they say. Their point, keep in mind, they're experts, is there's very little chance of these ecosystems regenerating after the fires. Gary's counterclaim?
Yes, they will. In 2 years' time, idiots. Research conducted at the School of Life. A rainforest will regenerate as quickly as a gum forest, and you know why? Because they're both plants. Plant that seed in your mind, eco-spastics.
How many confirmed extinctions were there last year, Geordies? You don't actually know, do you? It was 2, mate. 2.
Oh no, take cover. General Gaz just dropped a fact bomb. Citation sorely needed.
And here it is. Published at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies versus published on the Say Anything for Clicks, Please Give Us Money Guardian. Now let's read an excerpt. Global extinction rates. Why do estimates vary so wildly?
No, it is not. Not once does that article say that 2 species went extinct in 2018. My main suspicion as to why that is because it was published in 2015. You suck. He then goes on to read the first half of a 360 Yale article, but no, just like last time when he read out a Guardian paragraph because he thought it supported his point, failing to grasp the concept that it didn't, he did it again. It's like he's a character in an RPG game and he's only got 4 options to choose from. 1. Attempt to say something witty, which is almost always a variation of "No, you are, dick nose." 2. Call other people names. 3. Get offended by someone else calling me names. 4. Read someone else's paragraph in triumph, completely unaware that it doesn't support me. Time to level up, c***s. This time he chooses to do it for 3 minutes.
The current global extinctions were up to 100 times higher than the background rate. Severus then went on to assume that his accelerated loss of vertebrate species would apply across the whole of nature, leading him to conclude that extinction rates today were up to 100 times higher than background.
Embarrassingly, the article he's reading does not contest that vertebrate extinctions are currently 100 times the background rate. He's not saying that. He's saying that not enough research has been done on invertebrates to know what their extinction rates are, because no one's going to spend 30 years in a Micronesian swamp wondering if the dodo leech has gone the way of the dodo. And I'm using the word leech very purposely, because that's what you are, Gary. And I'm not even saying that as a joke. This is research in itself. Ladies, let me know in the comments what you'd rather pash, this leech or Gary Orsum. Lucky for you though, Gaz, that permanently stained 3 minutes of your life is very quickly forgotten, as it's almost instantly outweighed by an even bigger embarrassment. You ready, G-Man? You're not gonna like it, so I'm gonna like it a lot. The guy that you're referencing frequently writes for The Guardian.
Published at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies versus published on the Say Anything for Clicks, Please Give Us Money Guardian.
Ooh, what are you going to do now that you can't use the source that you didn't even understand in the first place? And it gets better. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the cherry on top. The man that Gary Orsum uses, despite him writing for The Guardian, also writes about how climate deniers like Gary are wrong. That, Gary, is why you are unironically my favourite YouTuber. No one can own someone as thoroughly and effectively as you owned yourself. You are brutal, you real-life Elmer Fudd. Not at all a stretch from the truth, by the way. There is a reason your channel is often mistaken for satire. Think about that. Your very existence is often mistaken for a joke. And yet all of that combined doesn't even begin to come close to the real reason Gary truly is the $56 man.
Even Geordies himself came on and left a positive comment on one of my music videos. I actually really respect him for doing that. Maybe he's a Foo Fighters fan, but I actually suspect he was offering a bit of an olive branch, knowing that his audience were behaving like a bunch of pigs. In fact, if Geordie's ever wanted to do some sort of musical collaboration or needs help with anything musical, I'd be open to that.
As always with Gaz, the sarcasm never lost on him. How could anyone have anything but genuine love for this? Get ready! The raw power! How could you not think that was one of the best songs of the last decade? If only there was some way to prove it and... Musical collaboration. What's this? Triple J's hottest 100 of the decade. Well, what a perfect opportunity to piss both Triple J and Gaz off equally. All while promoting local Australian artists. Please imagine how glorious it would be to clash Triple J and Gary Orsum involuntarily together, pushing them into a death spiral of mutual disdain. Everyone share the link under this hashtag. Hashtag Gaz for 100. Let's make it history, baby, in the only way the internet knows how. mass shit posting. Voting closes next Monday. Get to it, and remember, we have the numbers. If it's not on the Hot 100, we'll know permanently that it's rigged. I'm looking at you, Rubens. Make sure you press the like button. Hashtag Gaz for100. Share this, and you know exactly what song to request on good nights. Maestro, if you please, cue up Gary Orsum's All My Life. Not the Foo Fighters version, Gary Orsum's. He made it his own. It's his original now.
One by one hidden up my sleeve. And let it go to waste. I love it, but I hate the taste. And where you giving me now?
Hey, old man. Give me everything.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!